Everyone wants to improve, to become better, to become wiser. That is what self-improvement is all about. But why do people feel this compulsive need for improvement? Why does why does everybody feel the need to add something, to become better? Because they want to feel better, because they want to feel appropriate, valuable, validated. It's all about that. So they keep adding. Let's add this knowledge, that piece of knowledge. Next year I have to read 50 books, I have to listen to 2,000 hours of podcasts, and do 100 hours of meditation. That's when I will feel properly complete, and see me the year after that, I'm gonna be a beast. When did self improvement become this cock measuring contest, this ego driven race? You read 30 books that year? Oh, I read 35 books. I'm smarter. Why is it just a competition? Why is it all about showing off? Now, the cornerstone principles of self improvement are golden. They really do make the difference between medium average achievers and really high performing people, high achievers, really wise persons. That is undeniable. But nowadays, I feel like it's all about flexing. It's all about having that quantifiable proof so that you can show off. Fundamentally, what can you even improve? You can improve yourself mentally and physically, right? Well, the mainstream psychological improvement is faulty nowadays. This amount of quantifiable proof, right? Just gaining that number of books, that number of hours of meditation, that does nothing in itself. Some people need a couple of pieces of advice and they are good to go. But they keep consuming. Why do they keep consuming? Because they are caught into this trap and because consumption is very, very addictive. But anyway, let's not even make it so bad. Let's say that the consumption is properly directed. You absorb everything like a sponge. You gain all the knowledge, all of the skills. Well, inevitably, in that scenario, you end up attaching your self worth and your self esteem to the amount of work you're putting in, to the amount of information you are gaining. So you work 10 hours today, right? Well, then you are allowed to walk the street confidently. But if you fell down the other day, you are worthless. And this also reinforces competitiveness, and truthfully, there will always be someone better than you in a certain topic, in a certain domain. This approach is nothing close to real psychological self improvement. You just gain knowledge blindly. You could talk about these interesting realizations and insights about psychology for hours and hours. But in reality, what really changed in your life? Not much. This is a trap where you hide your insecurities and your anxieties behind pushing hard, behind working hard and achieving a lot. But when it comes to real psychological self improvement, it's not about getting more and more and more. It's just about removing the BS that's put on top of your default authentic self and unleashing that core confidence that really lays there and waits for you to unleash it. Because naturally that's your state, to be confident, to not feel inferior, to not feel anxious if you are worse in a certain domain than another person. There is such a thing as an inferiority feeling, which is strictly niched into one specific domain, and that's where people feel inferior than another person at one certain skill, and that is healthy. That pushes us to make progress. Progress would be impossible without it. But the issue comes where the inferiority complex kicks in, and this is where all the anxieties stem from. You feel inferior as a whole, and that's wrong. That's not good at all. You feel inferior in a certain domain, and that raises all sorts of questions of self-doubt inside of you, and you just start feeling just lesser of a person than someone else. In Adlerian psychology, there is an interesting concept called the community feeling. Adler was saying that in the presence of a high enough amount of community feeling in a certain individual, all problems of life fade away. And breaking this down, he concluded that what one needs to feel fulfilled is to feel like they are valuable enough to their peers. Not to actually be valuable enough in an objective way, but to feel subjectively biased, in a biased way, that they are valuable enough to their peers. That means that if your threshold for feeling valuable enough is working 14 hours a day and you just worked 12, you will feel worthless. But if my threshold is being pretty present around people and I manage to do it, I will feel fulfilled. Who has a better life? There are very, very few objective truths about life. And when it comes to psychology, it's even more complicated. We must understand our own bias and start accepting a broader range, a broader amount of possibilities of interpretations of life, because that is true self improvement.